Yeah, I want to begin by thanking the China Knowledge Network for the funding that we've got. When I saw the call, I was very excited that, yes, we can get a little bit of money, but hopefully doing something that is interesting and useful socially, but also for us academically. I'm very happy that Michael is online with us. Paul is somewhere in the air, he said, so he can't even join online. He's busy jetting around the world. So here we are, the team, and Ming, who is actually the chief researcher and author of the report, will be taking you through most of the findings a bit later on, very quickly. So for me, I just want to welcome everyone and set the setting a little bit, why we wrote a proposal for this particular study. It is because we found that what we know and what is circulated about Chinese migrant in Europe is not always very up to date. Or at least a lot of the images that people have is still sort of behind, you know, not really caught up with what research has been doing, what people are doing. Also because most of us in the team, we are somehow connected and engaged with Chinese civil and migrant civil organizations organizing in Europe. So we decided, oh, let's do a little bit of a mapping. That's what we wanted to do, to study or to record at least what we could find, the trend, the emergence, what we call the emergence of new Chinese civil society organizations and networks. Ming will go into the details of how we define an organization, why we call them new, for example, a little bit. But here, yeah, I mean, these are already some points that we find it's important to say that the contemporary, what we call new Chinese civil society organization, they are much more populated, so to say, by middle-class, younger migrants. Very often they are students or professionals, and this contrasts quite a bit with the diaspora organizations earlier generations. Because of the nature of their work, but also broader, you know, transformation, like digital transformation, right? The way how they organize, how they do it, you know, the membership, how it is more dynamic. All these are newer characteristics, so to say, compared to what the older literature about Chinese civil society organizing was about. And in contrast to how it used to be that, you know, for some of you who are in Chinese studies, we know that it used to be when we talk about organizing, oh yeah, there are these camps, right? These are the Chinese, mainland Chinese camp and the Taiwanese camps, and these sort of link to particular transnational state is very much emphasized in previous literature or studies, but here we also find that a lot of the people who are engaged, they are interested, they are engaged in various kinds of social issues. So when we talk about organizing, activism, you know, a lot of times they also are working not with direct ties with the Chinese government. The research focus is these five domains about mapping out the emergence and the growth of these organizations and network, the structure and how they operate. Number 3 is about the network and connection within and between and among these different networks and organizations. And then we devoted the last 2 chapters, so to say, on try to gauge some impact. It's not always easy to measure impact, but we try to map out some of the things that we've heard, we've learned, what these kind of organizing have influence among themselves in Europe, but also beyond. And the very last section is about challenges faced by these organizations. And then we end the report with a list of recommendations. Yeah, on that note, stay tuned, because Ming is going to tell you a lot of things about really the detail of our study. You press yourself. Okay.
Okay. So this project started with a creation of a data set of, in total, here, 533 Chinese organizations and collectives across Netherlands and Europe based on online information to provide a broad exploratory mapping of the Chinese organizing in Europe. For sure, this is not a completely list of how Chinese people organizing in Europe, but I think it serves as a starting point for us to look at the general landscape. And we also do participant observation of public events and community activities organized by these groups in different contexts. Then between October 2024 and January 2025, we interviewed 32 individuals with 24 of them are organizers, activities, core member in the organization, and 8 people identifying themselves as participant, observers, and volunteers. All of these 32 individuals present 17 organizations in total, and among these 17 organizations, 12 of them are based in Netherlands. 11 of them are based in Netherlands, and 1 is a transnational network. So in this presentation, I grouped them to 12 groups based and also active in Netherlands. Our sampling strategy is purposive and theory driven. So all of these 11 organizations we identify as new CCSOs in mapping are included in the interview. This is what this is for the groups that inside the Netherlands. And outside the Netherlands, we select cases to reflect diversity in terms of organizational focus or their structure. And to make the scope more clear, we focus only on groups formed by Chinese migrants from mainland China. So there's no organization formed by Hong Kong run or formed by Hong Konger or Taiwanese. And last but not least, this project follows a very strict ethical standards. All research participants have been informed in advance and gave us the consent for all online or offline activities. And these 32 interview participants are also give us the informed consent, their personal informations, including their specific organizational informations, are anonymized. And the full draft of this report, before this publication, the full draft of this report has been shared among all the participants for their review. Okay, so this is about the method and data for this project. Among 533 organizations we find online, 72 of them we identify as the new Chinese civil society organizations, which are formed or operated by almost by the middle class or the student organizers, and they focus on broader public issues, including feminism, LGBT rights, and human rights. And among these 72 new organizations, 11 of them are based in Netherlands. 1 is a transnational network. And we identified there are several long-term factors contribute to the emergence of this kind of organization. First of all, the social and economic composition of Chinese migrants has changed significantly over years, with the number of Chinese migrants increased steadily over years. We've seen a growing number of skilled professionals, overseas students, and entrepreneurs. We believe they bring the new perspective and the different resources to the civil society organizing. Second, both China and Europe has undergone significant economic and political transformations recently, like in Europe, the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, as well as the 2015 refugee crisis, led to a stricter immigration policies in many European countries. And meanwhile, Chinese migrants here face a growing political suspicion that the decision maker regards Chinese migrants may be potential agents of Chinese state. But at the same time, the Chinese state intensify its surveillance and control over its overseas citizens. And the third long-term factor, we think it's the technology. Technology reshaped the way Chinese migrant communities connect and networking, like the internet, cell phones, social media, for sure reduce the cost of networking among Chinese migrant communities across the world. But on the other hand, this technology also expands the state surveillance and increase the risk of public visibility for the civil society organizing. Besides long-term factors, there are several key events we believe trigger the growth of this kind of new Chinese organizations. One is the COVID-19. So the prolonged lockdown make many feel socially isolated. So many people want to connect to each other. We've seen the online community increase during this period of time. And these groups formed out of necessity later evolved to be a more organized networks to become a space for mutual support and connections. And second, a series of political issues in China by the end of 2022 led to the widespread protest among Chinese migrant communities across Europe. And this also marked an unprecedented moment for Chinese migrants to do public demonstration. And this protest also led to some global online network among Chinese groups, allowing for a wider range of the transnational collaboration. But this wave of movement is short. So by the early of 2023, many of these groups formed in 2022 actually either disbanded or changed their focus. Some of them changed to become more radical and shifting their focus to human rights advocacy. Some of them changed to take more moderate approach, focusing on community building or offline social gatherings. And one of our interview participants estimates that only 10% of groups formed during this period of time remain active today. Okay, so these are the factors we think contribute to the emergence and the growth of the new Chinese civil society organizing. During this research, we identified 4 types of founding motivations among these groups. So connection, adaptation, communication, and advocacy. So this diagram here is not to show an hierarchical or inclusive relationship among these 4 motivations. I just want to show that how these motivations extend outward and covering an increasingly wider social scope. So for the organizations with motivation as connection, they try to fulfill the need for interpersonal connection and the communication by offering some cultural event offline or some community activities online. And for the organization aim at adaptation, they want to facilitate the information sharing among Chinese migrant communities to help them actively engage in Dutch society. And by communication, they mean they want to they want to promote the communication between the academia, especially the academia and the government in Netherlands, connect with the Chinese migrant community to address the growing political suspicions and to address the growing racial prejudice that led to the widened information gap and also the misunderstanding. The last one, advocacy. Advocacy means they try to do advocacy at the international community for both Chinese diaspora and Chinese civil society. So these are the formation, and regarding their daily operation, most of them, no, not most of them, all of them operate on the relatively small scale. So among the 12 organizations we interviewed, which based on Netherlands or work in Netherlands, they have the typical size range from 2 to 5 people, and their daily operation rely on a very small or several core members supported by a volunteer networks. They help with specific events, and members, yes, frequently change, and their engagement level fluctuated over time. The high turnover, according to their reflection, are driven by several factors. First of all, the attractiveness of activity may decline, and second, personal circumstances of members or volunteers may change, and third, the workload of these organizations often are overwhelming because of the limited number of people, and also for some internal conflict or internal fights may also lead to the high turnover. And for most of them, yes, funding is the primary challenge. We identified there are 3 ways they deal with funding. Like one among the 12, also the 12 organizations in Netherlands, there's one of them just solely rely on the volunteer work. And 7 of them operate on a combination of the volunteer work and the event-based income, like the event ticket or the event fee. And 4 of them, yes, receive some small project-based funding. And among these 12 organizations, 7 of them remain unregistered, and 5 of them have been officially registered when I was doing the interview. For those who choose to register, the primary reason is the access to funding. Yeah, they need the registration to apply for funding. And for the other 7 who choose to remain unregistered, because first of all, they can rely on volunteer work and the event-based income to support their daily work. And second, they want to avoid administrative and financial burden after registration. And third, registration has to disclose the personal information of organizer. That may be a concern for some groups, so they choose to remain unregistered. And all of the organizations I interview tend to adopt then non-hierarchical decision-making structure. They use these 2 keywords to describe their structure. One is decentralization, the other is flat structure. It means that the decision emerge from from the open discussion among core members, even sometimes among the volunteer workers, and also the vote among members, rather than have a central figure or central authority who decide the policies and actions. And all of them they have organized a variety. You can see there is a variety of activities. And one reason for, I think, such diversity of the activity forms is that among the 12 organizations, 5 of them have core members who, with the prior experience of civil society organizing either in China or in other countries. So they have experience of civil engagement. And these groups use different media and communication platforms depending on their target audiences and also their consideration about security. Among the 12 organizations, 7 of them use both Chinese and international platforms so that they can engage with more and broader audiences and across different regions. 5 of them only use international platforms, and their main concern is about security and censorship. So as you see that they will take precautions on digital platform, but as well as a variety of security practice, like the use of anonymity, the financial and the legal precautions to protect the organization's safety and the members' privacy. I think it's very important to note that they do not regard security as a fixed checklist and tick every checklist before the activity. They regard it as an ongoing process of negotiation and consent so as to minimize the risk as well as sustain a space with care, trust, and resilience under pressure. When it comes to continuity, when it comes to the question about organizational continuity, most organizations will not measure continuity or success by the institutional expansion or long-term strategy. Rather, they regard continuity as maintaining a small but stable core team, or they want to sustain certain or flexibility to adapt when needed. And not all organizations has direct interaction with the local government. Among the 12 organizations, only 5 of them report have concrete interactions with the Dutch government bodies. And they suggest that this kind of interaction requires considerable social and cultural capital, including language proficiency, knowledge of administrative process, and also network to the access to local network. So how they connect to each other? There are multiple ways for connection and networking. First of all, many individuals actually involve in multiple organizations simultaneously. So this overlapping engagement strengthens the ties between groups. And the second, I think this is maybe a common understanding of civil society organizing, that personal relationships play the most important role. I think the most important role in connection and networking, because most new members are introduced through trusted friends. And the third is the joint participation in the event can help individuals to establish new connections as well as strengthen the existing ones. And this kind of shared experience may lead to lasting relationships or friendships. Yes, online, the tech knowledge may help the individuals to become even a member of the global online network of Chinese migrants. Many people become this grand network by joining an online group. And this transnational networks has even been expanded with the help of algorithm. So individuals mention that they discover new events, new organizations through the activity announcement online, or their social media post, or some algorithm-driven content suggestions. So these are several ways for people to know each other and connect with each other. Regarding the impact, yes, it's not very easy to access their impact. So based on their interview and our analysis, when talking about their impact within the Chinese migrant communities in Europe, our interview participants believe that they provide information and resources to ease the early adaptation challenges among the migrant groups to provide a sense of belonging. And B, second, they help Chinese migrants to learn how to engage civic participation in the Dutch society. Okay, so this is their impact within the Chinese migrant community in Europe. How about beyond the Chinese migrant community in Europe? Our research argued that they increase Chinese visibility in social and political arena, break the stereotype that Chinese people don't care about public issues. Yeah, this is also mentioned by one of our interview respondents. And the second, spread awareness of Chinese civil society organizing and Chinese civil society issues in European society. And the third, facilitate interaction between the Chinese community and the local society. These are the three primary influences we identified regarding the impact beyond Chinese migrant community, but still within the European society. And finally, at the international level, some organizers argue that they make Chinese civil society visible to the global community. And the second, they encourage international pressure on the Chinese government through open public discussion or documentation of social events. And finally, the returnee with the experience of civil society organizing or civic engagement will bring this experience from Netherlands back to China. Okay, so these are the, I think, multiple layers of influence for this new civil society organizations have for Chinese migrant community, for the European society, as well as for the global community. Talking about the challenge, despite of the impact, there are significant challenges faced by these organizations which will affect their effectiveness and the sustainability. We group challenges into 5 areas, and these challenges are listed in order from the most frequently mentioned by our respondents to, just from the most mentioned respondents. First of all is funding. But here funding is not about how much money is available, it's about the accessibility. So for example, some organizers, they simply do not know where to look for existing funding. And second, most funding come with certain requirements, like institutional or some eligibility requirement that the new formed organizations can hardly meet. And third, most fundings are project-based. That means it covers the cost of specific events rather than some ongoing operational cost like salary, rent, or administrative expenses. And so primarily due to the funding constriction, most members in these groups work on volunteer basis without financial compensation. And this will pose challenge to the sustainability. Many people finally step back, and so lead to inconsistent participation and the high turnover. Third, yes, many organizations are aware of the political risk and the security issues. Members worry, yes, about surveillance and control, especially online. So that will lead to self-censorship and limited public visibility. One common dilemma for organizers and participants are the dilemma between offline and online activity. So all of them rely heavily on digital platform to expand their influence, to engage wider audiences, but it also invites state civilians and control. And the offline gathering are generally regarded to be safer, but with limited reach and also limited influence. Therefore, this trade-off will affect how these organizations operate their activities. And so even for those who have some experience about civil society organizing will encounter challenges when they organize, when they do their work in Dutch society, because they do not have, what do we say, the local, everyday know-how, just like everyday knowledge. There are many practical aspects of community activities. Those are taken for granted by local activities, but not very familiar for Chinese organizers. They often struggle with how to interact with police, how to collaborate or formally collaborate with Dutch institutes, and how to handle the tax and the financial regulation, and where to seek for legal guidance. So without this fundamental knowledge about, I think, Dutch society will make the civic engagement remain difficult for them. And the last one is the general global political climate change in ways that will affect how this Chinese civil society organized operate in Dutch society. As we know that there are more conservative government gain the power, lead to more inward-looking policy. This is one thing. And the other thing is that more and more civil society organizations, including Chinese civil society organizations, turn inward-looking, focus on their own community rather to achieve a broader cooperation or collaboration. So these are the findings for our 5 research questions. And Maggie will turn to the last slide about recommendation we have based on our research.
It's very kind and Ming. Let me come back. I always like listening to her because it reminds what we've learned so much in a matter of a few months. No? I want to reiterate, it was a small project, but Ming did a fantastic job in reaching so many people, also as a newcomer herself. So it's impressive. The recommendations. This is our last slide, and it sort of deduced from some of the challenges that Ming just explained. So probably not very surprising. Improve funding accessibility. So as we just heard, right, it is often not about how much money, but about regular funding, or how to understand where to go, what to apply for. So one recommendation would be, if desired or if really motivated, and how to develop some funding mechanism that allow more easily newly established organizations or networks to access resources for both projects and also more regular operation costs. As we were saying, some of these funding is very event-oriented. You do one thing, but we also need to live long to do something. So there may be a message to the state, but also maybe to other foundations and so on. Other support is also desired. Support in, for instance, tax and financial guidance, and that I think Ming found out a lot about this fund is very complex, right? This maybe we call it typical Dutch. We like to say what is typical Dutch, but maybe this is one of the typical Dutch things that newcomers struggle with, right? Also because of course, language challenges, and also just the lack of knowledge of how things work. So some support in accounting assistance or tax refund, or these kind of legal procedures would help newcomer migrant-led organizations navigate the system. And obviously, this is not only limited to Chinese migrant organizing. Maybe it also applies to other migrant or even Dutch civil society, how to go, move through these labyrinths, so to say. The issue about security or the feeling of insecurity is a big one. So I think the state, if we consider the Chinese migrants as part of the society, like early on, in the interview, we also talk about why would the public be interested? And I think the first line of my argument would be, migrants are part of the public, and therefore, that is already enough. And of course, what migrant organizing, what they do is beyond these, like the daily livelihood or their well-being, right? It has impact in the bigger society. And therefore, this is also about if migrant communities or individuals don't feel safe, there are concerns about surveillance and all that, then of course, our participant would like to see that the state takes stands and acts, to provide a safe environment and how to support activism and how this kind of work can flourish is important. And I also like to add that we immediately think of transnational repression when we're talking about the Chinese case. But like Ming was also saying, it is in Europe also we have lots of, in more and more less tolerant social pressure around. So that is also something that should be addressed, or something should be done, right? So it's not only, what I want to say is it's not only about, it's the transnational repressive state, so we help these, beyond, but actually a lot of things happening is within the society as well. To be more creative, networking, here we also recommend that maybe, if possible, right, create more structured, more ongoing spaces and opportunities to connect civil society organized networks with other stakeholders, so to say. And being in the academic, I've worked with colleagues and I've always found it so interesting. So, and also to bring what they do to our students. I can imagine this broadening the network is important work. And whoever is positioned differently here in this room, right? Some of us are in the university, some of us are in the ministry, but how do we create space so that networking among various migrant organizations or networks with the academic, with NGOs, with the media, how to make spaces. We talk about digital all the time, but coming together also very important. So how do we make spaces and funding opportunities, shared, knowledge and all that. So that's what we put under the broader category of networking. And the last but not least is really space, right? Because we also hear a lot about, we want to do things, but finding space is a classic challenge in the Netherlands. In the university, we always talk about problem with space. Here also, when people want to do things, where to find space, big enough, small enough, safe enough, convenient enough to do things. So that is also something that we talked about, how maybe public institutions can open up, unused space during the holidays or during, some hours so that organizers, networks can find more easily do things. So, it ranges to something from money to something bigger, more politics, to something more pragmatic. This is the list of recommendations we want to talk about today, but if I invite all of you to pick up a copy online or offline to read, we have other recommendations as well. And then on that, I think that's our last slide, yes. We kept it to within 1 hour, so we have more time to. And here again, different of us, we are positioned differently. If you're interested in getting in touch with us, here our email, but you can also find that in the report. I think with that, I would like to conclude this part of the event, and we're open for any questions you have and recommendations, suggestions. Thank you.